When evaluating gait in a cane-bearing examinee, there's a few things that we're going to want to take a look at. First of all, we're going to want to see whether or not the cane is properly fit to the injured worker. And so that raises the question, what is the proper fit of a cane? Have you ever thought about that? I never did. I never gave it a second thought. But a cane should be properly fit, and that makes sense. So what is the proper fit of the cane? Well, we'll go over that in just a minute. Next thing you should look at is you should look for the proper use of the cane. And that raises the question, well, what is the proper use of a cane? It makes sense that there probably is a proper use of a cane, but heck, I never thought of that before. What is the proper use of a cane? Well, we'll go over that as well. And then finally, when you evaluate an injured worker who presents with a cane, you're going to want to determine what is their dependence on the cane, because the AMA guides describe varying degrees of dependence on the cane. So there are a few signs of dependence on the cane that you can check that would be objective findings or objective factors, so to speak, that would suggest light, medium, or heavy dependence on the cane. So let's go over these one at a time. You're going to want to check the fit of the cane. So in order to do this, you would have your injured worker stand up straight with their cane at their side. And in this position, the cane in general should come up to about as high as the flexor crease of the wrist, sort of at the radiocarpal joints, at the wrist flexion crease. So the cane should come up to about as high as the wrist when the examinee is standing still and straight. Therefore, when the examinee holds the cane, it'll produce a small flexion in the elbow of about 15 to 20 degrees in standing. Now, if the cane is too tall, that's going to place increased angle at the elbow and increased effort at the elbow, and this will be unacceptable for extended use. On the other hand, a cane that's too short is going to put undue effort at the wrist and undue pressure on the hand bones, and of course this won't be tolerated for extended use. And if you identify a poorly fitting cane, you should inquire as to whether or not the primary treating physician actually fit the cane at the time the cane was dispensed. And this will give you a lot of information. If the examinee indicates that the cane was not dispensed nor fit by the primary treating physician or other consulting specialist, in my opinion, this does not qualify as a medically necessary device, at least under the workers' compensation claim. So proper fit of the cane tells us a lot. In fact, if the cane was simply given by the uncle or a relative or a friend, or the cane was picked up at the pharmacy on a self-procured basis, in my opinion, many times because the injured worker has not been properly trained or fit for the device, this would not qualify as a medically necessary device, at least under the workers' compensation claim. And that's just my opinion. You're going to want to check for the proper use of the cane. And so what is proper use of a cane? Well, that's interesting. That's interesting to consider. Proper use of a cane involves use of the cane in the hand opposite to the side of the pain, with a shift of weight to the cane and therefore off the affected limb. Recall that with normal gait, the movement of the arms is that the arms move reciprocally with the legs. As the left leg comes forward to the stance phase of gait, there's reciprocal forward swing of the right arm. So in an effort to relieve weight bearing from, for example, a painful left lower extremity, weight is shifted to the cane in the right hand as the right hand comes forward in reciprocal arm swing. To carry the cane in the left hand to relieve weight bearing from the left lower extremity would be improper use of the cane. In cases where improper use of the cane is identified, what you would want to do is you would ask the injured worker as to whether or not the primary treating physician demonstrated the proper use of the cane at the time that the cane was dispensed. Again, in my opinion, if the cane was not dispensed by the primary treating physician, it does not qualify as a medically necessary device, at least under the workers' compensation claim. And one of the ways that you can determine this is by checking for proper use. Sometimes you'll see the cane used in the wrong hand, and that's a tip-off that the cane was, well, it's a tip-off at least that the injured worker was not instructed in the proper use of the cane, and it might therefore indicate that the cane was obtained on a self-procured basis, in which case it's actually not a medically necessary device. Sometimes you'll have a chance to observe the examinee using the cane going up and down stairs. So proper use of the cane when ascending stairs, you'll see that the examinee should step first with the unaffected leg. This is going upstairs now. So the first step is made with the unaffected leg, or the good leg. In this case, we're talking about the right leg. So the injured worker examinee would place the right foot on the next stair up from where they are. Then what they would do is they would bring the cane and the affected leg up by straightening the good leg at the knee, so that all weight bearing is done by the good leg, or the unaffected leg. So as the unaffected leg reaches up to the next step, the weight is borne between the affected leg on the upper step and the cane on the lower step, thereby relieving the affected leg. When it's done in this way, all weight bearing is borne by the unaffected leg, and the affected leg simply trails along for the ride with very little weight bearing load placed upon it. Now, if you identify improper technique in going up and down stairs, that would indicate minimal to no impairment of the supposed or claimed affected leg, in my opinion. When descending stairs or going downstairs, a similar but opposite procedure is used. The examinee should step down first, this time with the affected leg. This is interesting little nuance. When going upstairs, you step first with the unaffected leg. When descending stairs, the examinee should step down first with the affected leg and the cane at the same time. And then they lower themselves slowly by bending the unaffected leg's knee until the cane and the affected leg's foot are in firm contact with the next stair down. Then you bring the unaffected leg down to the same stair. So that makes sense. As you step off of the stair to go down to the next stair, you step off with the unaffected leg with the affected leg, because the affected leg certainly would not have the power to control a large eccentric lowering contraction with all body weight plus the acceleration due to gravity. That must be done by the good or unaffected leg. So it's the unaffected leg that does all the muscular and weight-bearing effort. The affected leg simply reaches down to the next stair and lands on the next stair as it's placed there by the lowering effect of the good or unaffected side. You might also observe that the examinee steps down the stairs in a sideways fashion. This helps to recruit the large anti-gravity hamstring and buttocks muscles. Now, when this is done properly, all weight-bearing effort is borne by the unaffected leg, and the affected leg simply acts as a balance support. Done improperly, a large eccentric load to the gastrocnemius, the quadriceps, and the hamstring/gluteus muscles would indicate, at least in my opinion, absent impairment of the affected leg, or at the most, minimal impairment. Because if you can go downstairs with the affected or claimed affected leg, with that leg supporting a large eccentric load, that would indicate to me that any impairment of that extremity is minimal at most. Finally, you're going to want to check the dependence on the cane, and we do that by examining the cane. And basically, you're going to want to check how beat up the cane looks, how much wear and tear it looks like the cane is getting. For example, the shaft of the cane might have scrapes or scratches or dents, or in the case of a wooden shaft, might have some abrasions or scars on it to indicate that it's getting quite a bit of long-term use. The rubber tip on the bottom of the cane gives an indication also of its workload. A fresh, symmetric rubber tip would indicate very little use. Discolored and or a worn rubber tip would indicate more use. So you're going to want to examine the cane, and you do that by asking the injured worker to allow you to check the cane, and you examine it, and you look for wear patterns around the handle, oil deposits from the palm of the hand onto the handle of the cane. You would check the shaft for wear and tear, and you would also check the rubber tip for signs of long-term use. And in order to demonstrate some of these principles in use, we have a case study here that involves a 32-year-old male with claimed right radiculopathy.
Bien.
First, check the assistive device for proper fit, then for proper use, and then finally we want to check the dependence on the cane. And so I have here a videotape from my files. This is an actual case from my files that involves a case of claimed right radiculopathy. And as you look at this injured worker, his right would be to your viewing left. And so we went outside to videotape the gait, and I had him walk 20 yards toward me down this long sidewalk. And just as you see this still photo here in front of you, let's take a look at the fit of the cane. And recall we said that with the arm hanging down to the side, the top of the cane should come to the flexor wrist crease. And you can see that in this case, if the cane was standing vertically upright at its maximum height and the elbow was extended to its maximum length, the cane would probably come up to about the lower 1/3 of the forearm, which is set too high. Also, you can note that the angle of the elbow is greater than 15 to 20 degrees, thereby placing large load onto the triceps, which is going to be unacceptable over time. So, might not be an example of proper fit of the cane. Let's then take a look at whether or not, in your opinion, this qualifies as proper use of the cane.
Bien.
What did you think? Well, this is a 32-year-old with claimed right-sided radiculopathy. We would expect that the cane would be placed in the opposite hand to correlate with the reciprocal arm swing. You can see that the left arm is forward while the right leg is backwards, so he is using reciprocal arm swing, but the cane is being used in the improper hand. And so, in my opinion, I inquired as to whether or not he was instructed in the proper use of this cane, and he told me that the cane was simply given to him by his uncle, and I opined that this was not a medically necessary device. So we found that there was improper fit, and the cane was on the wrong side for a claimed right radiculopathy. This case later closed and settled by compromise and release, and permanent impairment, at least related to positive objective findings, was minimal at most. In addition to canes, you'll also see other types of assistive devices, although less common in the industrial setting. Occasionally you see a quadripod cane, you might see occasionally a pickup frame walker, and you might occasionally see a wheelie frame walker, so we'll talk about those briefly. Quadripod cane has a large base of support to provide added stability, and you'll notice that this cane here can stand up by itself. And the fact that it can stand up by itself means that it can pretty much stand its user up very stably as well. Problem with these is sometimes they're a little bit heavier than your standard single point cane. This shows a very large base, and you'll see these with varying sizes of bases. This one here is a large one, probably one of the largest that I've seen.